Hey guys, I'm Jake. I'm the creator of Tactical Tech. I'm going to show you a little bit about the origin story of my journey of creating Tactical Tech and where I'm at right now, which is about 3 years later. So when I started, I just was at my apartment and I had recently been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and Settlers of Catan, a few other board games, and then also in the video game world. I love first-person shooters, I love real-time strategy games, so like StarCraft, things like that. So I just started thinking of the things that I liked in games, and I combined elements of the things that I had been playing recently, and the theme I had picked is sci-fi because I really love anything futuristic. I know there's a lot of games out there that are more set in the past, but I really enjoy futuristic things. So when I first started out, I had the idea, and if you don't already know, the current board game that I have right now is a real-time strategy style game. It feels a lot like StarCraft if it were on a board game, and the resource mechanics feel kind of like Catan, Settlers of Catan, and then there's some influence from other various video games too. When I first started out, I was trying to make something kind of Dungeons and Dragons like. My original concept was I want to play a Dungeons and Dragons that's set in the future, but I don't really want long drawn out campaigns, because if you ever played Dungeons and Dragons, it's like weekend sessions of 6 to 8 hours with a group of people, and you do that every weekend for months, and an entire campaign you could be crawling one dungeon for a couple months. And so I actually at the time gotten tired of playing Dungeons and Dragons because I felt like it dragged on so much. Of course, that's also part of the dungeon master's job, is to try and make it fun and interesting and continue to go on. But I wanted to make something that felt like the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons, but was fast-paced and you could play it in under a couple hours. So the original concept had, let me actually show you the pieces here. So these are little cardboard cutout figurines that I had cut out by hand, and these things take a while. I think it took like 10 minutes each to do these, and there's probably 100 of those. For the art, I just went online and found various images of things that represented what I would want. It's just a prototype, so all I'm doing is just grabbing things to fill in as a filler. So I got the images I want and printed them out, cut them out, and glued them on here, and painted for each type of player. So you got your purple player, you got your orange player. And so originally what I was doing was I would say that you'd start out with your single unit, and so here are the board tiles, but they were a lot bigger before. And so I'd start out and I just wanted like a single unit, and then as he would engage in battle with other units, you would get skill points, and you'd use those skill points to upgrade your piece. So it was like single character upgrading. And when I finally finished the concept of the game, I realized that it was just dragging on way too long, and just the concept of single character upgrade, it just wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. So I started thinking about, well, what is it that I'm trying to reach? What's my goal here? And then I realized that I think players shouldn't be just controlling a single unit, but rather an entire army. It's more fun that way because you've got more stuff to work with. So it became more about that war game style strategy. That's when I switched over to war game instead of character RPG style. So the original box, I actually physically cut this box out and replicated based on how the mechanics worked for an actual manufactured game, which you can kind of see in the corner over there. So I made the box, and then for the art, this was on Photoshop. I took hours and hours to make each little piece, each little character. And then for the art, I just had a placeholder art originally, and then I actually bought the license for this background art. It's a little dark on this version, but you can see on the newer version, a little less dark, but you know, it'll be brighter on the final. So for original game pieces, you got these little guys. You got the cardboard tiles that I'd cut out. And then when I had moved on to the next version, instead of using little paper standees, I switched over to using oven-baked clay. So thanks, Mom, for showing me this as a kid. But you can essentially just mold and form to any shape that you want. So I was sculpting and making my little figurines, and then I would make every single one by hand. Took hours to make these, and then I would just bake them in the oven, and then they came out, and there you go. So you got your little figurines. So the next version of those, well, actually, let me show you the resource cards too. These were originally just skill point cards, you know, for the original version, the Dungeons & Dragons style game. But then I switched to more Catan style, where there's multiple resources, and different combinations of resources allow you to buy certain things. But sorry, I'm going on a tangent there. So back to the pieces. So after I made the oven-baked clay ones, I wanted something a little more detailed. So at the time I decided, well, why don't I look into and research how to use plastics. So I bought a fairly inexpensive kit where you actually make your silicone mold. So how these work are, you take your original sculpted piece, which is the oven-baked clay pieces that I made, and you just make one of each type of model, and then you stand them up on a piece of board and glue them on, and then you have a box around it, and so you pour the silicone, so you pour it down as a liquid, and it fills up, and let it harden, and then when you're taking it off, you just flip it over, take off the cardboard, you know, make little incisions, and then you slowly pull out each of the models, and then that is your molds right there. And then with the plastics, you've got your part A and your part B, part A, part B, and you mix these together in a cup, and you got to do this quickly, but not too quickly, but about 5 minutes. First pour them together, and then you take the ink color that you want for the players, and then you pour those together, add the ink, mix it up, and then you take that mixture and you pour the mixture into here very slowly, let it fill up to the top, and then just wait probably, I think I waited like 30 minutes just to be safe, because it goes from liquid to like gummy into full-on solid. And then you just keep repeating the process for how many pieces you need. That was tricky, a lot of trial and error with this. I must have thrown away so many bad pieces. So that would be the final version right here, you can see. And it's funny because when they came out, they kind of look like little gummy bears. That's what everyone was saying during playtesting. And then after I finished with that version, I wanted to step it up to a more fancy version, something a little more professional. So I went on, I think it was Fiverr, and hired a 3D modeler because I didn't know how to 3D model at the time. And I had him basically just model all the pieces I wanted in I think Blender or something like that. And then I decided to invest in a 3D printer. So I bought my 3D printer. It was super cheap on Amazon, and bought all the filament coils. And then just started, and I actually do a lot of trial and error trying to get those pieces working, because there was, here, I'm going to show you the final versions here. So these right here are the finals, and they are beautiful, just very detailed, and they came out just exactly like they looked on the computer. I think I have a TikTok video showing me making them, also on my Instagram too, for the board game. If you're wondering which one that is, it's techtightgames.com. I'll leave it up on the screen. So when I got those done, it worked beautifully. Everything that I wanted about it worked out great. There is a special mechanic that I wanted for these pieces. I wanted them to be modular so that you could snap parts of it together. So there's this this piece right here. It's an upgrade piece, and it's like a little shield, and it actually snaps in like that and gives it an extra health point, so it's a little stronger. And the concept was great. So I actually found out that the patent for Lego had expired, a long time ago. So you can use their mechanic, which is the little peg in the peg hole, for your modeling. So that was great to know. That was something I learned from somebody in my playtester group. So let me go into depth about that part. When you've got a board game concept that you want to try out, first thing you're probably going to do is want to play it with your family or maybe your friend group. And that will be probably the most influential, because you're going to first get that feel for if your game mechanics work at all. Another reason why I switched from the D&D model to the more real-time strategy model. Because I was realizing that it wasn't as fun. I was playing with my family, and they liked it for the most part, but it was just not a good concept. So when it came to playtesting, I just went online and researched playtesting in the Northwest board games, and sure enough, Playtest Northwest popped up on the search results. So they are a nonprofit board game playtesting, tabletop game testing group, which have been extremely beneficial and helpful for me. Not just because they help facilitate meetups for playtesting board games, but you actually meet people who have gone from, beginner, coming with an idea, all the way to the very end of actually manufacturing a game, distributing it, and getting it on the shelves. I mean, I think I even played a few games with some authors of board games, and they literally walked over to a part in the board game store and said, "See, here it is on the shelf." And I'm like, that's amazing. So that was amazing to be able to experience that and get really tapped into the board game designing industry. So I would recommend doing that. Just go online, find a playtesting group. You'd be surprised, there's probably a bunch, or at least one that's most well known. So after all the playtesting and getting everything polished, I spent so much time. I think one thing you're not gonna expect to be that difficult, but really is the rule book. I cannot tell you how many times and how many hours I spent recrafting the rule book. And I'm a little OCD when it comes to design, so I spent probably more time than I needed focusing on just the design. And I also had a lot of help with UX too from somebody. And you can see that this is more of like a late term version that's polished. There were so many earlier versions where it was like, this rule doesn't make sense in this spot. I wish I'd known this part earlier. So really formatting your rule book there is a science to it. And it seems like it would be simple just to lay out it how you would perceive it to be crafted. But there really is a finesse to it. And I can go into more detail about how the rule books should be formatted in a later video. And also, if that's something that you are interested in, please like this video. I have more to talk about, but please like this video. It'll help with the algorithm and get this notice and be able to help me produce more videos as well. So continuing on, once I got to a point where everything was looking polished and I did all my art and everything, then I knew it was time to actually get a couple prototypes, professional looking prototypes, produced. So the best thing I'd say to do is go on to thegamecrafter.com and submit. You want to basically go in there, create an account. You might need a business. I don't know if you do need a legal business or not, but I did. And when you get on there and you want to make your first board game, there's a ton of steps, but everything is very understandable. You can watch some videos too on YouTube to teach you how to use GameCrafter. And basically I would really honestly recommend getting like 5 copies made. I only made 2, thinking that I would just want to hold on to one and then put another one in rotation when I submitted it to board game reviewers. But I started realizing late term that no, you really want like 5 to 10 copies so that you can put out those 4 to 9 copies in circulation, and you can have your 1 copy or 2 copies for the play testing and the events and everything that you're trying to host by yourself. But that's very important to do, is get your polished version produced, at least 5 copies. It's expensive though, because you're asking a manufacturer basically to make one-offs for you, and it's this whole startup and overhead cost, even making one, is super high. And I recommend at least saving up for that, because it's the long-term benefit's going to be really beneficial. So after I had gotten those polished versions made, and then I went back to my playtester group and got in contact with a distributor in the local Northwest, and they basically advised me that from a practicality standpoint, producing in mass at a low cost per unit wasn't going to be very easy with 3-dimensional models, and I totally understand that. I actually have a background working working with vendors and suppliers and product development. So from my experience, I know that to be true, that you're asking a manufacturer to make dies, which are the molds, the plastic molds, the plastic injection molds, similar to this, but on a professional level using metal ones. But you're asking a manufacturer to make a die for each model, and I have 10 models. So, I'm guessing it's like $500 per die, and you're saying that times 10, that's a lot of money. So they advised that I should at least start out with a retail version of the game, which would be basically with standee models, which is really common in the board game industry these days, to have that version that's more affordable for not just consumers, but affordable for the board game shop sales, the board game shops. They need to be able to afford a low cost product to put in their stores, have a reasonable incentive of a margin to make on your product, and be willing to sell it and push it because it's at an affordable amount for the consumer. So I was able to make a standee version, which is funny because come full circle, this actually goes back to what the original one kind of felt like, which is so funny. But I'm not completely scrapping the 3D model version because I still love it. Even my father agrees that the 3D model is better. And it's better in a sense that better quality. It'd be more enjoyable to have this version, but I can't ask my base consumer, my base fan base to be paying $80, $90, $100 for a standard version, which is considered actually on the high-end deluxe market, the novelty market. So to make a retail-friendly version, I've now got it down to making just a single die, which is a custom standee version that I made. The reason why it's custom is because I want this to be able to have the, let me get the correct one, kind of like in the original, I want to have, instead of snapping together with the 3D models, these standees have a second slot for the upgrade, like that. So I can be able to still showcase that this attaches to that. So this single model, and now I have a single die, so maybe it's $500, I'm just guessing, $500 for this single die, and then, you know, paper is super easy. To cut costs even more, if you're gonna do something standee-like, for if you're doing a game like, you know, similar with similar pieces, you can do just the standard industry standees, which are similar to this, but they have a single slot. I think there's a few board games out there that have their own custom standees, but if you want an industry standard one, it's gonna be way cheaper. I'm asking a manufacturer to custom make us at least one die for me. So that is pretty much it. This, I showed this earlier, this is the polished box right here. This was made from the Game Crafter. You can see the quality of that compared to my own printed version, which is obviously older art, but you know, this was, I think this was Kinko's that I got the cover made, and then I taped it on myself while I used super glue, or just regular glue. So yeah, that's the finalized polished version. That's start to finish of creating a board game. So I would say when you're starting out, don't worry so much about having pretty art when you're first making the mechanics. You can go as simple as just pen and paper and just throw something out there. Get your concept out there, figure out what your priorities are for the game, figure out what's gonna make it fun. And then once you have a solid idea down, you've alpha tested it, you've been playing it just with yourself, playing against yourself if there's multiple players, and then you feel like you've got some basic game mechanics down, then if you want, start making some simple art. I would say just use stock art and just throw placeholder art down just to get that feel that you want, because I think that is really important to have that feel. I would even do that before you go to your first public playtesting match, or even just even for friends, get some kind of art down there and get the theme down. Because if you're gonna playtest a game, you want to have the theme on there, because you want people to get that feel first for what you're going for, and then they already get an idea that you're going to be doing something to the next level once you get there. So yeah, that would be that part. When it comes to actually playtesting, you're gonna want to, I have this 3 criteria for what makes a good playtest. Was it not terribly long? Were they engaged the entire time and having fun? And would they play it again? So those are 3 things I think are the most important for your playtest. And then if you're wondering when you're gonna be done playtesting, the question should be, is there anything left to change? When there's literally nothing left to change because of how many times you've play tested it, and it's going to be a lot of play tests, and you'll be comfortably surprised that there's going to be at least something that you should consider changing, or an idea that you need to test, A/B test, whatever, split test. You're going to need to test something. If it doesn't work, go back to what you had going for you. You're going to find that everyone's going to want to throw ideas at you, and there may not be ideas that apply to what you're doing, or there may be ideas that do seem like they would be great, but they end up being conflicting, or end up steering too far away of what your goal is, or what is best for the game. Because you have to keep in mind that, yes, it's your baby, it's your game, but you are sharing this for everyone to enjoy and to understand your vision and be able to experience what it is that makes it fun. So don't be biased and think that it has to be a certain way. You need to make it make sense. It has to make sense. That is really important too. has to make sense for everybody. And then, when you get to the part where you've done play testing, you've got your first prototypes, your polished prototypes done, then that's when you move on to the I wouldn't say manufacturing, but you're gonna have to figure out your funding. You're gonna figure out your manufacturing. So what you want to do next, and this is like that part 2. The product is done, the design's done. That's the easy part, because all that stuff makes sense. It just kind of flows. Where you start hitting the roadblocks is the marketing and building an audience, and then the manufacturing, the logistics of it, and then the distributing. And then that's the next part. So I think manufacturing is actually really easy. You just have to research online and look at, I would say, find 5 to 10 different manufacturers. It could be around the world, doesn't matter. And get quotes from all of them. Make sure you're asking all the right criteria for what you need for your game. And then just compare all the quotes. And if you want, you could even say, hey, this one is offering, this price for what you want. Make sure you get the quote on the shipping too. And then some of the manufacturers actually offer more than just manufacturing. They might even have a marketing team. They might have fulfillment. They might have storage at a really low rate. Those are all things you should consider. Once you get those quotes down, just make sure you let them know that you don't have the funding right now, but you will let them know when you are ready. They'll typically hold that quote for you. So that's the manufacturing. I think that part's easy. Distribution, I was lucky enough to be part of a playtesting group, so I could ask them and find out what exactly they had to offer for me, and what the relationship's going to be. So I'm established now with a manufacturer, a distributor, for when the time comes. Same thing. They understand you need to get the funding, you need to get your audience, the marketing, all that stuff. The hardest part is building the audience. That's the hardest part. Funding is actually not that hard, because funding comes in response to your audience, which is your fan base, your followers, all that stuff. I'm still currently working on that part. Once I get that viral feel of where everyone is starting to talk about the game and they're like, check this game out, I think it's super cool and I want to get it when it comes out. That's when you get the people who are like, yes, sign me up, I want to know when the game is available. And then so that's when you build the audience, and you get to a point where they are literally screaming at you saying, I want this game. Why can't I have this game? Give it to me now. I'm ready. Let me buy it. And just make sure that you've got I would say 80-20 rule is perfect for this. Or even the 10-to-1 rule, which is you need to have 10 times the amount of followers across all your social medias before you can launch for like Kickstarter and launch for sales, to the amount of people that you need for covering that first production run. So let's just say, for example, you need $10,000 to sell a $50 game. Then you need 200 people to buy the game, and so that means you need 2,000 followers that are saying, yes, I want to buy the game. So you got to funnel them in from all your social medias. So that's that part. I'm not a huge expert on the audience building, but that's probably where I'm most excited to work on. And I'm not in a rush, so I'm gonna just keep parking down on it, just pumping out content, stuff like that, just to build my audience over time until it's ready. So there's no hard deadline. I did try to set up a Kickstarter deadline, but I realized that the deadline of the Kickstarter depends on when the audience has reached its goal, and that depends on how quickly I can build the audience. So no hard rush that way. But yeah, once you get to building your audience base, then you are ready to do the Kickstarter if you're going to do it that route. Or maybe you do have the funding for it, and that's awesome. Maybe you've got investors, family members. I hear all that all the time. And then that's when the fun begins, because you get that first order down, with the manufacturer. It's going to take a couple months because they have to work with you to make sure that you approve all the samples and all the proofs, and then they'll manufacture it and then they'll ship it. And usually, typically, let's be real, most of these manufacturers are overseas. Even if they say they're based in the US, their manufacturing physically happens overseas. They may just have the business based in the US or Canada or wherever you are from. And then as soon as you get that first production set, either delivered to wherever you are or whatever storage or fulfillment, then you want to get a big chunk of those sent to your distributor or whatever distributors you have. And they will probably have a storage fee, maybe not if they're friendly about it. They're going to obviously, usually what they'll do is they'll take the inventory on hold. They won't purchase it from you. They're just facilitating with all of the stores, the local stores that they have in their account manager, account list, and then they will just funnel those games to them, and then the store owners will be purchasing those. Then the distributor gets a commission of that usually, and then you get all the remaining proceeds. So you're selling them super cheap. To a chunk of yours are going to be super cheap sold to there, but that's not the point. You're not trying to profit right now. You're just trying to scale. So get that first production run to them. Also do online sales. You can. I recommend setting up a website if you don't have one already, and sell online through there. You're gonna have to set up your merchant. You can do like Shopify or Wix or one of those, or Squarespace. And then also you want to go to Amazon and sell on there. It's really easy. I think it's actually pretty easy to get on there. You need to have a business at that point. They require a business license. And so, yeah, you want to sell on there. And then I think Walmart is super hard to get on their seller. It's a lot of hoops to jump through for them. There might be some other ones too, but those are probably your main ones. And then there might be a portion of the boxes that you want to actually like raffle and give out and give away, maybe as a bargain or incentive. Even when it comes to like board game reviewers and influencers, you probably would just want to give them a copy, or maybe those are ones that just go in rotation for, a lot of times they'll just say, yeah, we'll you just cover the shipping, send it to us, and then we'll do our little episode, charge you a fee, and then we will just send it to wherever you want, and just keep those in cycle. And then, yeah, if you really want to spread the awareness of your game, you got to hold events, you got to attend events, you got to have, playtesting setups for the general public. You could sell on the spot if the venue allows it, and you would just have to have, like maybe a square or some kind of, it's called a square if you have the brand Square. So you have a little point of sales kiosk on your phone, just swipe that way. That's a possibility, or just direct them to your site. And then, so those are methods that you can scale, because you're trying to continue to build your audience while you are distributing your live product. And honestly, that's where the fun part is. So yeah, if this has been beneficial and helpful, again, please like the video. And I just really would like you guys to check out my website, techtaggames.com. Check out the board game that I have going. Look at the social medias I have. Look at the other videos that I'm posting on YouTube. And if you want to play this game right now, if you have Tabletop Simulator, it's a virtual board game platform on Steam. I know some of you don't, a lot of you don't, but that would be an awesome spot that you could go to just download the board game for free onto Tabletop Simulator, and you can play it on their platform virtually with your friends right now. So that would be awesome. And if you do guys play it, please post things, stream it on Twitch or whatever, and share it. I would love to see things that you guys have played, matches you've played. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and please subscribe and all that good stuff. Thanks, and I will post more videos. Great. Bye.